Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So few months back when I was looking to switch jobs, I appeared in a number of interviews at different companies and one of them was Amazon Whole Foods. So just like my previous two videos where I shared exact questions that were asked to me in data science interviews at Amazon and Expedia, and you can find the links to those videos in the description below, I'm going to share the exact question that was asked to me at Amazon for Whole Foods in this particular video. So when I applied to Amazon Whole Foods, after a couple of days, I received an email for phone screening, and once I was done with the phone screening part, the round two was this take-home assignment, which I'm going to share in detail in this video. In the email that I received from Amazon Whole Foods, I received these two different data sets, calendar.csv and sales.txt. Now, if you see, sales.txt is a huge file, like 334 MB for a .txt file is a huge file size. And this is because this txt file has about 5 million rows. So that's a lot, right? You can download these data sets as well using the Google Drive link that I have shared in the description below. Okay, so let's move on. So basically, this is the take home assignment, and no, I have not received the take home assignment in a IPython notebook. I have just converted whatever email I received into an IPython notebook so that I can, go over the question step by step, try to walk you through the different columns and what these CSV files and TXT files had in them, what different columns mean, and what were the questions that were asked based on it, right? Okay. So the email read, the first thing that the email talked about was this data set includes the unit sales of various products sold at whole food markets, and it was organized in a grouped time series. Now the first thing to keep in mind here is that the position that I was applying to at Amazon Whole Foods was obviously a data scientist position, but it was in their pricing team, right? So there in the phone screening, when I got a chance to ask the hiring manager what they wanted to, what basically their team does and things like that, so he mentioned that they do this time series analysis on a regular basis, and that is why you see there is a connection between what the actual roles requires and what your take home assignment is. Okay, so let's move forward, right? So more specifically, the dataset involves the unit sales of these several products. There are three different product families and seven product categories, which the above mentioned categories are disaggregated. So basically, these three product families have seven different product categories. The products are sold across 10 different stores in three different states: Florida, New York, and Colorado. And as mentioned earlier as well, so there were two files, right? The first one was calendar.csv, which had information about the dates the different products were sold. So I've just imported NumPy and pandas to like walk you through what all columns these data sets had, how many rows they had, were there null values, NaN values, boolean values, categorical variables, etc, etc, right? So when I read this data set and stored in a data frame called data set, so basically if you see, there are about 2000 rows in calendar.csv file and 14 columns. The columns are date, weekday, like month, year, events, etc, etc, delivery, New York. These are, if you see, these are boolean values, a lot of NaN values, right? So what these different columns mean basically, right? So it was mentioned in the email clearly. So you didn't have to do a guesswork. So it was clearly mentioned in the email that what these different columns mean. So date is basically the date. WM underscore year underscore week is basically the ID of the week the date belongs to. So basically different weeks were identified by different IDs, right? So this all these dates, if you see, they belong to the same ID, right? So this is what the weekday was, basically the day of the week. uh, W day is the ID of the weekday starting from Saturday. So basically Saturday was one. If you see, Saturday was one, Sunday was two, Monday was three, and things like that. Which months? Obviously, this comes from the date part. Year again comes from the date part, right? And if you see this column D, this is basically how many data points do you have, right? So if you see here from index 0 to 1968, right? So here it has started from D1, so basically it goes to D1969, right? So these are the basically 1969 different dates, right? Now comes event name, event type, one, two, right? So what does these mean? So basically, event name is if the date includes an event. So what was the name of the event and what was the type of the event? Similarly, for event name two and event type two as well, right? So basically, most of the dates didn't have any event on that particular on a particular day, right? But in some of the dates there were some values, right? So for example, 19th of June 2016 was NBA finals, and obviously NBA is a basketball tournament, right? So it was a event, sporting time event. Father's Day, it is a cultural event. So basically on the same day there was like it was Father's Day as well as there was NBA finals. So basically this is what these four columns are trying to convey. Now, as it was mentioned earlier, right? So it is mentioned that the products were sold in 10 different stores and located in three different states: Florida, New York, Colorado, right? So basically these three columns identify on which different dates home delivery was available. So if you see, delivery NY, delivery FL, and delivery CO, these obviously hold binary values 0 or 1, indicating whether the stores these different stores provide home delivery on the examined date, and one means they did. So it is very possible that on one particular day a store in Florida does not provide home delivery, but on the other day it can provide. So there is no fixed kind of structure here. So it depends upon different days, right? And it can happen or it can be based on certain aspects, right? Maybe they didn't have delivery boys or delivery people on a particular day, they have shortage of staff, they have maybe holidays on a couple of days, whatever with the reason, and that is what we need to analyze as well, right? So if you see, like on some days, Florida, there was no delivery, take home delivery, right? But on other days there were. So basically these were the different 14 columns of this calendar.csv file, and about 2000 rows, right? Now the second file was sales.txt, right, which was the bigger file, about 330 MB, right? So sales.txt file contains the historical daily unit sales data per product and store. So basically it is the historical data of different products and store, right? So again, I read the sales.txt file and stored it in historical data frame. Also, right, here you see one thing. I used a read CSV file. It is not a CSV file. It is .txt file. And the second thing is CSV is basically comma separated values, right? But here the separation was with these pipes, right? So you can use different separators in the data and you can get the result, right? Okay, so basically this historical data frame has about 5 million rows and 8 different columns, right? Item ID, family ID, category ID, store, state, date, units, sell price, right? And what does this basically these different columns mean? So it was again explained very clearly in the email. So item ID is basically the ID of the product. Family ID is basically the ID of the department the product belongs to. So if you see, like these two different items, they belong to same department, right? So like maybe daily essentials, or maybe coffee, maybe uh, healthcare items, personal care items, groceries, whatever, like these different departments, right? Category ID is basically the ID of the category the product belongs to, right? So in a particular department there can be different categories, right? So for example, in groceries, is it a vegetable, is it a fruit, is it something else, is it spices, whatever, like can be different categories. Store ID is basically the ID of the store where the product is sold. Makes sense. And we remember that there were 10 different stores in 3 different states, right? So and then comes state ID, state where the store is located. Date ID is basically the date, and it starts from 29th of January 2011. Units, so basically this column units is basically the number of products sold on that particular day, and sell price is the price of the product for the given day and that particular store, right? So again, here another thing to keep in mind is it's written the price of the product for the given day and store. So it can be possible that a biscuit in store ID whatever cost $5, but on that same day on a different store the price can be different, right? So we need to keep that in mind while doing analysis. If not available, this means that the product was not sold during the examined date. Note that the prices may change through time, right? Yeah. So again, we need to keep these things in mind. Okay. So once these things were explained to me in detail, then what did we need to do using all these things, right? So the email mentioned that in order to access your technical skills, you need to analyze the data, basically the 2 data sets, calendar.csv and sales.txt, and answer these various questions, right? So the first question was to develop a model that best forecasts daily sales for all items in the data set. So basically you need to do a forecasting of all the different items that were sold and do a forecast for next 56 days out, right? So basically for next 56 days we need to forecast how many of different products, how many units will be sold. So if you see, it is a forecasting problem or basically a time series analysis, right? So there are different methods which you can use, like right from the linear regression to there are specific models which are built to do these type of things, like ARIMA, seasonal ARIMA, right? ARIMA stands for auto-regressive integrated moving average, seasonal auto-regressive integrated moving average, SARIMA. Then there are Dick Fuller's test to make your time series stationary, because you need to do a lot of other analysis as well, and things like that, right? So basically all those things we need to apply here and try to come up with a model to forecast for the next 56 days. Then again, obviously you need to have different models and you choose out of it. So state the model that was chosen for the analysis and explain why you decided on this model, right? So if you see, this is just like a machine learning exercise as well, right? So you can write from the linear regression to a deep neural network, right? You can employ any of the models along with this SARIMA, ARIMA things that are made specifically for forecasting time series analysis, right? So you can employ a variety of these different models, and then based on that you can choose which one is doing better, right? Now, one thing to keep in mind is, that is why you should read all the question at once. Why? If you see question 3, assess the accuracy of your forecasts and provide a summary of your work to a business stakeholder in plain non-technical language, right? Please send your forecast and we will validate with true data. Now, if let's say in the second model you came up with 2 different models, right, which is almost similar accuracy. One is a deep neural network where you do not understand different hidden layers. All you understand is the input and the output. And there is another, let's say, seasonal ARIMA, which is able to achieve that amount of accuracy or very similar accuracy as deep neural network. So since you need to, provide a summary of your work to a business stakeholder and non-technical language, so obviously when you talk to them, they are going to ask questions like, how did you arrive at this? And if you say, okay, my model predicted that, that is not a good answer. Like you need to make them understand like how and why your model is working the way that it is, right? So in those cases you should have a explainable model, and this is the concept of explainable AI, right? So you don't have to have a black box model where whatever goes inside, you don't even understand what is happening and something is coming out. Even if it is very accurate, it would be very problematic in this case, right? So you need to do that, and that is why state the model that was chosen for analysis, and like these two questions are interlinked. You need to think about it in a clear manner. And what does this assess the accuracy of your forecast mean? So basically, again, it is a simple machine learning exercise, right? So you have a train test split, and then you train the models, different models on trained data, and then you forecast for the test data and try to see your error and different matrices. How much difference is it from the test data, and based on like whichever is getting closer to the actual values in the test data, like that is a good model for you. And there was a final bonus question as well, so like it was not mandatory to do, but it was bonus points. So but here you would have, and if there is a person who needs to do this, you need to understand different, like the concept of price elasticity. Again, as I mentioned, this position was a data scientist position in their pricing team, so obviously it is very basic for the pricing team, and one should know about it. So what, and if you don't know about it, they have even mentioned price elasticity is basically change in units divided by change in price. And for all the products of the data sets, you need to calculate the price elasticity. So yeah, these were the different questions that we had to do, and the email didn't stop here. So there were some guidelines to solve the assignment as well. Like, so you don't have to do any external data or research. Your analysis should only be based on the data set that is given to you. You don't have to employ anything else, right? You can manipulate the data. So again, what does this mean? Manipulate the data. You can create different columns if you see fit, remove few columns if you see like they are not adding any value to a particular model. You can do imputation. So basically, if there are null values in the column, you can do mean imputation, median imputation, frequency imputation, and whatever you seem fit, and whatever. And but you need to make sure you explain it clearly in your writing. We had to write about 2 pages of a report, you're containing your responsible responses to analysis request. So basically it answers to all these different 3 questions, and if you are attempting the fourth one as well, explaining your entire methodology, like how did you manipulated your data, why did you do that, why did you include another column, what is it doing to your data, then different models that you tested out, why did you use ARIMA, why did you use neural network, what was the different accuracies. In ARIMA you need to make your data set time series basically stationary, right? So how did you do that, how much differentiating did you do in those? So like these are the terms related to time series analysis which you should try to work on. Any manipulations, again as I mentioned earlier, any manipulations of the data, assumptions that were made, any other points that were relevant. And obviously in such exercises try to include as many graphs as possible, because it gives a sense to the person who is checking or who is going through your data. Firstly, the clear understanding, and secondly, he or she knows that the person who has attempted this knows and is comfortable enough with the data and has tried their best to understand their data themselves as well before just going ahead and developing a model. And finally it was mentioned that including everything it won't take more than 10 hours to complete. I was given a week to complete this, but it was mentioned that it won't take about 10 hours. So I took about like 15 to 20 hours to complete it, because anyway I had a week to do this. So yeah, like this was the entire take home assignment. Again, as I mentioned earlier as well, you can find the link to the Google Drive in the description below. You can download the data set. You have all these different questions you can download. Try to answer all these questions based on whatever you know about time series analysis. Comment down below, and like we can go through it together, and we can help each other as well. And once just to conclude, once this was entirely done and I submitted this, the final round of the interview was basically presenting all the findings that I had and accumulated in the report to our interview panel. And then there were a lot of deep dive questions on it, like why did I choose a particular model, why didn't I go with another model even though their accuracy was 2% higher, things like that. How do you explain this, why did you use this chart not the other chart, things like that, right? These were the very questions of the final round, so entirely based on this take home assignment. This was the entire questions in detail that were asked to me in Amazon Whole Foods data science interview. The entire take-home assignment. Let me know, guys, if you found this video useful, and if you did, if you can subscribe. I have even shared Amazon data science interview questions, where I shared about 22 questions that were asked to me in an Amazon data science interview. Then I shared the 3 different questions that were asked to me in a Expedia data science interview. That 3 questions include a SQL exercise. Like I go through the entire SQL question that was asked, the data example as well. The second question was a coding question there. Again, entire question, what it meant, what was the ask, different examples to make you understand. And the third one was a machine learning exercise, very similar to this, but in this question, in this take home assignment, you are given directive questions, right? So you have a direction what you need to do out of this data. There is no data, so how do you go about such questions? You can find the link in the description and you can watch those videos. I think it would be very helpful for you guys. Let me know, guys, if this was useful, and I will keep coming up with such videos. And until then, I will see you guys in the next video.